What's up, everybody? How's it going? This is Justin Bozeman. I have a kind of a thought process that I want to take you through. And I do this a lot on the Theoretical Podcast, so I'm going to do it briefly up here so you can kind of hear what I do. But I wanted to ask a question. And that question is, did the media put a battery in your back? I asked this question because I was thinking about some things that have happened and that have transpired and that have gone on over the last couple of years. And I just want to go step by step into why I think like this. In 2016, when President Donald Trump won the election in a shocking landslide, the media then began a full court press assault on the American public to demonize people who voted for Donald Trump, saying that they were bigoted, racist, fascist, xenophobe, homophobe, all other type of phobes. Everything that everything bad in the world was a result of these people. And they considered them to be an enemy. And they were able to do this for years. From day one of Donald Trump's administration, they publicly scrutinized every small, minute detail of his administration. Every word he said, everything that was done, every person he chose on his cabinet, on his staff, every report that a staffer has. If a staffer didn't like the air conditioning temperature in the room, you heard about it in the news that night. If a staffer didn't like the fact that they got paid on Fridays instead of on Mondays or instead of the 15th and 30th, you heard about it that day. Come up in the form of them saying, "Oh, there's disgruntled workers. Donald Trump doesn't treat his workers well." All this. I say all this to say, and let me get a drink. Because I'm gonna take my time and ask this question because I really think that it really hasn't been asked. For all the people who were before so angry about every detail in the Trump administration, they were angry about every speech, they were angry about everything he said. They were angry when the media reported that his son, colluded with Russia to take a meeting during his campaign. A meeting that turns out to be with a Russian lawyer who was trying to finalize a adoption for a client of hers, and it was taken by Donald Trump Jr. Now, they harped on this meeting for about 3.5 years. They harped on it so much they went and they got an investigation into Donald Trump and they launched the Mueller Report from the report that, oh, there's collusion with Russia, look at this, look at that, and all this and all that. And they kept feeding that narrative for years and years and years. And the people, if you were a person who hated Trump, you ran with it. You said, see, I can tell you why he's not good because it's been shown that he is corrupt and he has this and he has that. So they ran with this for years, years and years, and they ran with it. Only to find out, especially more recently, that it was a conjured smoking gun. It was made up. The Mueller report was the baby of false documented, made up dossier that was bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign, used with the help of the CIA to make it. And nobody cared. Nobody seemed to, people only cared when they thought Donald Trump was guilty and it was going to be for sure that he was going to be, quote unquote, impeached. for whatever moral smoking gun that they wanted to think that they came up with. But this was like a big deal. I mean, this was a big deal. I mean, this was something that was in the news for years. And they kept it in your mind, only to have it be shown to be false, and they haven't reported that as much because it shows that the media is lying about certain things. Let's fast forward to today. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, has a son who's made some business dealings in the Ukraine and in other places in the world, and he has a laptop that has information on it and documents a lot of these things. There's a lot of corruption in terms of him being able to accept and receive jobs that are for pay grade of someone who has experience in an industry that he does not have. This has been well documented. And people were talking about launching investigations into Trump because of Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting and all the stuff that happened with Russia. And we got people who got the battery put into their back, which eventually they did send the FBI to investigate this. And now, finally, I want to ask the question, where is all this energy at for Joe Biden? All the people who sat around and called Donald Trump immoral because this or because of that and because of this and because of that, where is all that same energy for Joe Biden? Where's all that same energy for a guy who was accepting millions of dollars for the favoritism of the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden? Where's all that energy for the investigation of corruption? Where are all my Democratic liberals who talk about corruption in the government and who talk about Trump for years being corrupt and being this and being that, and this is why we got to get him out of there? Where's all that energy at now? Why don't you want investigations now into Hunter Biden? These are all questions that I ask because it's important for me to point out and to recognize that there seems to be only one side of the owl, of the political owl, that seems to have to keep a standard of perfection, and it's the right. When it comes to the left is allowed to take payments and balloon their bank accounts up. The left is allowed to go into office poor and broke and come out 4 or 5, 10 years later, multi-millionaires, even though their salaries are only a few $100,000 maybe a year at the most. Nobody talks about this. But when they're told to by the media to care about it, when a conservative does it, when someone on the wrong side of the aisle does it, that's when it's important. I think, to be honest, that corruption is important at all times. I think that unfair practices from these politicians in terms of accepting monies for political favors is an unfair practice at all times. But yet, people don't want to talk about it when there's a Democrat in office. Why is that? And I made this video to ask you a question. Are you a person who's had a battery put into your back by the mainstream media? Did you only care about corruption when they told you that it was Donald Trump because they told you to hate Donald Trump? Did the media put a battery in your back because when all of a sudden, when Donald Trump was running, all of a sudden, a man who you had no thoughts about, no inclinations about, didn't care nothing about, all of a sudden he became the leader of the Ku Klux Klan? Do you have a battery in your back when somebody mentions Donald Trump and the first thing that you think of is racist, when there's been nothing in his policies that he has signed into law, no executive order, Nothing that he has suggested legislatively that has even given the slightest hint of him being racist. Are you the person who has the battery in your back by the media who all of a sudden you don't care about the borders of the United States being flooded with millions of illegal immigrants? And you just say, hey, you know what, let them in, man. I mean, we don't care. Are you the person who has the battery in your back by the media where in 2020 you didn't care about foreign policy at all? You didn't care about the fact that Joe Biden has a record of being wrong in foreign policy in every single instance? Did you not care that Barack Obama said that Joe Biden is wrong in every foreign policy aspect that he's ever had in his political career, and he couldn't trust Joe's actual opinion because he knew he was wrong? Are you the person who didn't care about foreign policy? You only cared about what the media said to care about, which was the made up coronavirus and the made up story of the Trump dossier. If you're a person who probably identifies some of these things that you cared about all of a sudden, you might want to look at yourself and understand that you've been successfully socially engineered. You've been successfully socially engineered to care about what the media tells you that you should care about, and the stuff that they don't want you to care about or don't want you to look at or to investigate, they sweep under the rug. This is called partiality. This is what Christians would call, who read the Bible, partiality. And I would think that anybody who claims to have morality, who wants to take the moral high ground whenever you talk about Donald Trump, you want to talk about his affairs with women and all this other stuff, I would think that a person who wants to take the moral high ground needs to understand that when you're guilty of one thing in the law, you're guilty of all. And so you should have that same energy when it comes to Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, but you don't. I want to know why. I made this video to ask you why. I want to ask America, why don't you have that same energy? Is it because the media told you not to have it? Is it because the media convinced you and put the battery in your back and told you that Joe Biden isn't a racist? He cares about black people. In fact, you're not black if you don't vote for him. Are you a person who's that swayed, who's that comforted by what the words of the media are, that you'll just do what they say to do? These are all pressing questions that I ask you, and I want to know these answers. So please comment. Let me know if you think that I'm just, blowing smoke. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you thought about these things. And so this is Justin Bozeman. This is the Theological Podcast Short. Till next time, everybody, I'm signing out.